Alright, I just got back from walking Loki and I'm just sitting at my desk and I've been watching these TikToks where people, and I haven't seen this myself, I'm just seeing people say this, so I can't confirm to my own mind whether or not that's a fact or not, but they're saying that the government confirmed that aliens are living in the ocean. And I've seen multiple people talking about this. And then I've kind of seen people, I guess, tell their own stories. And if you've been with me, then you might remember this story. This happened in 2015, 2016. I forget what year this was. And what's interesting is that when I told that story, I feel like it definitely feels different telling it now versus then. Because at the time, it was obviously current. It had happened to me. I came home from my family vacation that we take every year to Florida. And I came and told you guys this story because it really messed with me. And I remember at the time when I was telling you guys a story, I wanted so badly to like make it make sense in my head and make it logical. And it just wasn't. But I knew, but in the same breath, in the same sentence, I knew that I did see something. And that what I saw was unlike anything I'd ever seen. So I'm going to tell you guys my alien story, and you can take it for what you will. But I do feel like telling the story now, I feel like makes what I saw seem very much more real. I mean, it was real. I'll say that. I mean, it was real then. It's still real to me till this day. But I think what it does is it doesn't make it more real because, again, it's still real. I think it makes it more scary, to be honest. Like, realizing what me and my stepdad had come across and now hearing all of these rumblings. So let me tell the story and then I'll tell you guys, like, my views on aliens and what I think and what I believe and don't believe. So I have to go back to confirm the year, but I remember what house Micah and I were living in. So, and as many times as I've moved, I know it by the year. And this was the house that had like the really big windows. This was the house where Loxie was like doing her shenanigans in the back when I was filming in the kitchen. You guys would laugh and tell me all about what she was doing because I had no idea. This was that house. Because I remember, I feel like I was like in the bathroom or somewhere and I was telling the story. I don't know. I could look up the video. It's still here on this vlog, but I remember it being 2015, 2016, because Micah was a freshman in high school. And we went on our yearly or our annual Florida vacation. And this particular year was the year that I got sun poisoning. And I was like bedridden and had to stay in the house most of the trip. And so I remember that when I finally like felt like I could go back out into the sun, I just remember that my stepdad, he likes to fish, like that's his thing. And most of the years he would like rent a kayak and he would go out into the ocean and try to catch fish. And this particular year, he had rented a 2-person kayak because I believe my brother was also on this trip that year. My brother doesn't come every year, but I think my brother had been on the trip that year. And while I was sick at home, he had tried to go with my stepdad, but my brother gets seasick. So they didn't really make it out and whatever. So anyways, I felt bad for my stepdad. And so when I was feeling bad, I was like, I'll go out there with you. And I remember putting on like my one-piece bathing suit, I think. I had on a t-shirt, maybe even like a long sleeve. And then when I sat in the kayak, I had like a towel over my legs. So, and a hat, like I was fully covered. Like, so I really was just like, you know, going to just keep him company and, that kind of thing. And so we paddle out. This was also the same story where as we're trying to get over the waves, because that was the hardest part, because we went from the beach, so you have to get past the waves. And we had like toppled over and we lost one of his fishing rods. And then like the next day after this day had happened, we saw the helicopters who like zoom back and forth. They always check for like sharks and stuff. They had like circled like the area we had been in, and then they like left, and everyone was watching like, why are they circling? Why are they circling? We assumed that it was because they probably spotted the fishing rod in the water. But that was just an assumption. We just made the joke like, oh, the fishing rod's like probably right there. Anyways, diving off. So I'm soaking wet, by the way, because we get in the kayak too soon and we topple over from a wave. And so we get back in, we finally make it out, and we're paddling out, you know, and we're far enough away from the beach. This is the Panhandle, okay? We're far enough away that I really don't think at one point we could kind of see the beach. I don't know. I felt like we were pretty far, but we also weren't too far. And I didn't realize how far we were going to go out. So again, I'm sitting there. The whole purpose of the story is to tell you guys, really, I think this is the only reason why I saw what I saw, because I was sick, I had myself covered, and I really had nothing to do but sit there. So I'm in the front. My stepdad's in the back seat of this kayak. And he's also like fishing for bait. So he's trying to get the bait first, and then he was going to fish with the bait. So he was doing a lot of like throwing this net out situation, I guess, to get the bait. And we kind of like see schools of them, you know, and so we're like trying to paddle, and that was basically my only job. And then I'm kind of left to my own thoughts, and I'm like, I didn't realize we were going to paddle out so far. And I'm like, I didn't realize I was going to be so far. So the next thing that happens is now I'm afraid, and I'm realizing, how deep is it under here? I can't see anything. It's pitch black water at this point. And where we were at, the water is like crystal clear. It's called the Emerald Coast. Like it's all green. It's beautiful. It's beautiful water. And so I know when I can't see, we're deep. We're far out. So that thought starts to really set in, and I really start to kind of panic inside. And now I'm scanning. Now I'm hyper aware of what's actually happening. I'm like, oh, you know, it was all fun and games in my head to go out here on this kayak with him, but he's taken us a lot further than I thought. And so now I'm hyper aware of that situation, and I'm scanning the waters. That's all I'm doing. And it literally almost gave me a headache. So I am scanning for fins, okay? Scanning for fins. Like I am stressed to the max. And then that's when I see it. I really, like I can see it in my mind, but I wouldn't know how to draw it. I wouldn't know how to explain it to you. I know that what I saw was incredibly bizarre. I know that I've never seen anything like it, and I know it's not any documented thing that lives in the ocean that we've been taught, that are in the books, that's, you know, like, can I Google it? You can't Google this. And I remember it just being like, calling his name. I'm like, hey, what's that? What is that? And I don't really remember what he was saying to me. Yeah, I don't recall what my stepdad was saying at the time. But I know that it felt like that whatever it was, and how, like, let me just, to describe the distance from us to this thing. "20 yards, 25 yards. I'm thinking of a football field in my head. Or from here to, is this like, I would say like 15, 20 yards away from us. And it looked big. What I could see above the surface. I couldn't really see below the surface. It was kind of rounded-ish. It looked very bizarre. I guess if there was any way for me to describe it, it's like a pile of trash, but not. And that probably makes no sense, but oh gosh, I don't know how to describe this thing. It had eyes, because I could tell that it was looking at us. And I was just like, what is that? And it was not moving. That's the other key thing that I think needs to be said about this story. It was just like floating, sitting there, looking at us, watching to see what we were going to do. And now that, you know, this whole situation happened in the Miami Mall, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around what's going on there. I felt like that was really dusted under the rug a lot. Because from what I've seen, a lot of people are like, there's footage. Like, whatever happened in this Miami Mall with that whole alien situation, people had video footage. It seemed to be like scrubbed from the internet. I can't say here or there, because I obviously was not there, what was going on. But why were there so many cops from different counties? It wasn't just Miami-Dade County or whatever their county is. They like called the fleet, okay, on this one. And then like radio silence. I think I'm leaning more towards, and this is just my personal thoughts, okay? Don't take this for anything other than knowing that it's just, I think that whatever happened in that mall really happened. I don't know if it's like alien per se, if that makes sense, but I think that whatever was going on was not normal. And there were just, and at the time I actually, because it was like happening real time and people were like throwing it up and posting it fast. And I remember seeing some clips that like for whatever reason, you can't see them anymore. I don't know. It's just so weird. I find it weird that you would think this would be the kind of stuff the news would just like chomp on the bits, but it just seemed to just go like under the rug so much. And so that has me wondering about that situation. And I've seen other things too, you know, throughout the years, especially recently. I would say in the last 3-4 years, you hear more talks about people spotting certain things, and it's always been a thing, right? Like, I feel like people have been talking about UFOs for a very long time, like 40s and 50s, and even Kendall Ray, which I haven't even mentioned her in such a long time, but she is a YouTuber who does like crime podcasts and crime YouTube videos, and I used to watch her a lot. I go through waves, by the way. Like, I'm the type of person where I like to watch happy things, listen to happy music. It's just healthier. And happy books. It's just healthier. When I would watch those hardcore shows like Criminal Minds and Grey's Anatomy, and I would read V.C. Andrews, I always noticed I felt horrible. So I have to take those things in small doses. So anyways, I haven't really watched Kendall Ray in a while, but I've seen her cover a lot of different stories that deal with aliens. And this one story about these guys who were workers and they were leaving work, and they basically got abducted by aliens in a UFO and then kind of like brought back. And there was this whole story. You'd have to like watch it. I don't even remember most of it. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But this one guy specifically was just like, I know what happened. And he stuck to his story the entire time. So anyways, it's just something to not necessarily be like, oh, I believe it, or no, I don't. I just kind of like to keep somewhat of an open mind and just like consider. And so when I think of like how there's just so many people who have their own stories about certain things, there's this one girl, actually, I watched this one girl on TikTok not even that long ago, and she told this story is only told by her. I've never seen it like on a podcast or a YouTuber. It's nothing like that. She literally got onto TikTok and somehow it like came up and she tells this story. I'm obviously very much diving off. I will circle back. She told this story about how her and her best friend were going to go like rent this house, and she tells a very specific story about how the street they were driving and how things just made like impressions. And so she remembered it very vividly and very specifically, if that makes sense. Like, she knew that, you know, this was a very traveled street, and that's why they wanted the house in that location. And so she talks about how, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this story. She goes in with her friend because she had an appointment with the real estate agent to walk through this house, and it was a man. And so her and her friend are walking through this house, and they notice that it was kind of like dark, and they get to the master bedroom, and the girls start talking about like whose room it would kind of be, I think. And then he shows them the master closet, and this is where it gets weird. And they both kind of like look in there and like, oh my God, it's so big. And they're having this discussion. They're having this very detailed discussion about how they could fit so much in there and all of these things, and like, I guess who would get the room. And this guy was trying to get them to walk into it. Like, he was trying so hard that it started to raise massive red flags in her head. And she was trying her hardest not to look at her friend. She's the one telling this. Her friend was not in the TikTok. And this had happened like 10 years ago. So she's telling the story now. It's 2024. So I guess in 2014, this had happened. And she said that she remembers fighting so hard not to look at her friend, but she was screaming in her mind. Like, she was screaming at her friend and hoping that, like, she could hear her. Like, this is bad. We gotta go. Something bad's gonna happen to us. Because she was describing how hard he was trying to make them walk into this closet. He was like, well, y'all should go in there. Y'all should go in there. Well, we're standing right here. We can see it. Like, what is your deal? And she said that the very next thing she remembers is that her and her friend were sitting at a light in their car. No clue how they got there. She has no memory at all of what happened after that. She says 0 memory. And the friend has the same. They later talked about it. She said, what did she say? That suddenly she could hear a friend talking or something. Like they go from, he's like, get in the closet, go walk in the closet, to they're now in a car and it's dark. They're just sitting at a stop light. And I think her friend was talking, and it like got her back. And she was just like, oh my God, like, what just happened? And zero memory, how they went from this to that. And then, so you're like, oh, maybe like you were just in trauma panic mode that you don't remember exiting out. But this is where the story got wild. At that time, I guess they never contacted the real estate agent, obviously, ever again. And when they went back, they drove back down that same road, because it's a road that they use all the time because they were in college or something, and they, it was just like it was like the street, it was like a main street. And so they're driving back down the street, and that house wasn't there. Wasn't there. And she talks about how, specifically about the driveway of this house, because she talks about how the driveway was different from the road, or so, I don't remember the details, but the driveway had like very much significance to the story. And when they passed down the street, that house and the driveway are not there at all. Huh? And I think from that TikTok, people were like, have you ever thought about investigating and going to that town and pulling up records? Like, did the house catch on fire? Like, kind of what happened? I fell off of that TikTok. I could search it up and see if I could find it again. And I don't know if she ever went and dug into, I think she was planning on it. I think she was planning on going to see if she could find any record of this house or whatever. I don't know what happened with that. I think her and her friend really didn't discuss what had happened, but she believes, and this was just her, she believes that, she also remarks about different things that happened after that, how she felt like her life was slightly different in a sense. And she thinks that, that there's a possibility that you hop timelines. Again, this is very, how do you even talk about that? I don't know, but that they probably died. They probably died that day. And they think that's what happened. They think that it's the only explanation to why this house and that driveway was literally gone. I don't even know if it was a month later. It could have been the next week. I'd have to go back and find this TikTok and see what she says. And if I do find it, I'll list here what she says about the timeline from that day to them finding themselves at this light to the next time they drove back down that street. But it was an unreal, imaginable amount of time. Like, it was so short that it's like, how does a whole house and a driveway completely disappear that you have listed for rent? How does it go from being rented to somebody to being completely gone? No anything. There were no rubble, no nothing. Like, it literally never existed there. And so she thinks that what if they died? What if that's what happened and they did walk into the closet and, and this guy just got his opportunity. And then they find themselves at the stoplight, and is that like a jump in a different timeline? And like, this is their new timeline. And what if the house ended up getting burnt down? Because what if, I don't know. What does this have to do with aliens? I don't even know. But my point is, I feel like I've seen a lot of stories lately where people just have their own account of things. And I feel very much like that when I tell you guys a story. I do not take lightly. This isn't for fun. This isn't to gain attention. I do not take lightly when I say that when I saw what I saw, I knew it wasn't right. And it didn't feel right. And it wasn't what we know about our own world, I guess, right? Like, it was not something that's in the history books or in our, what's the word? Marine biology, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like hovering. And I had this sense at the time as I'm looking at this thing, and this thing I know is looking at us. And I can't even describe the eyes too. I wouldn't even really describe it like our eyes or a mammal's eyes or anything, but you knew it was eyes. That's all I know how to describe it. It was different, but you knew it was like it. Or it was different, but you knew it was like some version of eyes. And I knew that it was looking at us. I felt it. And I remember I couldn't see, obviously, in the water, but I just had this gut feeling it was huge. Whatever it was huge underneath. Like, I felt like we only saw a fraction of what this thing truly was, and that was just like my gut feeling at that time. And I remember being like, we gotta go. We gotta go. I don't know what that is. I said, but take me back. And he sees this thing. I am not the only one. He's behind me. And we're looking this way. I remember like our kayak is slightly pointed towards it. And I'm like just direct into the path of this thing. And I just did not want to have anything to do with it. I was so scared that I think my brain wasn't even comprehending like anything logical. Like, you might not make it out of this. I wasn't thinking like this thing could come get us. My brain stopped from thinking anything. My brain was literally, I felt my whole body protect itself. And the only thought that my brain was allowing me to have was to exit. That was it. Because when I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, the things that could have happened to us out there is very alarming to me. And even now, telling the story now feels so much more different than when I told it originally. Because now, I felt crazy, if I'm being honest. I felt crazy telling y'all this story. I'm like, this sounds crazy. Like, but I know what I saw. I don't know what I saw, but I know what I saw. And telling it now feels so different, because now as I'm watching more and more people, right? The internet's definitely even more bigger than it was in 2015. You have more apps. You have apps like TikTok where you can literally reach each other within seconds. YouTube is more of a uploading platform. Yeah, you've got YouTube Shorts, right? But YouTube, you've got to go edit it, throw it up. Like, it's not as quick 1, 2, 3 as a TikTok. And so it's the internet game is definitely vastly different today than it even was in 2016. And I just feel like telling the story today feels different in the sense that I feel even more validated. I hate to say it, because even a part of yourself, like when you see something and you know it's crazy, it feels crazy, you also are like, you try to find ways to tell yourself, we don't know what that was, right? Like, we don't know what that was. We never took a picture of it. And thank God. I think about that now. I'm like, what if we had whipped out a camera? Probably wrong move, right? Like, thank God that we exit stage left. And I think because of that is the reason why he and I are both here today. I do firmly believe that. I feel like we didn't really pull out cameras. We didn't go into it to investigate, which we could have done. We could have been like, what the hell is that? Row ourselves on over there. Nope. It was enough. And like he's still here, like we're still in the kayak. My stepdad was a veteran. He is very much a solid, calm individual. Like, he is very logical, slightly quiet, but just like a super calming person to be around. And a veteran served in the military for a very long time. So when he's like, yeah, we're gonna go, and then what happened next, when I also think about it, is also, again, it just adds to it. It makes it slightly more terrifying. It probably won't make sense, but it disappears into the water. But the way that it goes back into the water is really what has solidified a lot of why I think what I saw was just so weird. It did not move like a fish. It was like hovering, right? So here's the water. So it's kind of like hovering like this much out of the water, whatever this thing was. And then it just slowly, very slowly, I mean, with controlled precision, this thing just, and then, don't know what it's doing underneath the water. Don't know if it's coming for us. It did that once it saw we were leaving. What moves like that in the ocean that looked the way that it looked to me? It wasn't a turtle, it wasn't an octopus. Sharks don't move like that. Whales don't move like that. And especially, they've got those things and they sprout the water and they make all this noise. This thing was dead quiet. Didn't even hear it come out of the water. I don't know if it had been popped out of the water I don't even think that it had, because I was scanning the water so much because I was so afraid there were sharks, that's when I saw this thing. And I didn't hear it come out of the water. Like, you couldn't hear it go back into the water. It was wild. And that has really stuck with me. The movement of it, the way it went down so incredibly slow. Like, what does that? Like, then I think to myself, obviously it's not a pile of weird trash. Like, why trash would, right? How does it float and then goes back down controlled like that? No, that was just way too weird for me. It was definitely something. something that I've never before seen in my life, and I don't think anyone else has seen it either. And so anyways, I remember we're paddling back and I see a dolphin at one point. Finally I see a fin, but I'm like, it's going like this. I'm like, okay, dolphin. And I immediately felt some type of relief because I was like, well, if there's a dolphin around, like, right? Isn't technically everything okay, kind of? But that was like further in towards us going back inland. And I remember we get back and I'm telling everyone, like, you know, everyone on the trip, I'm like, pretty sure we just saw an alien. Like, and my stepdad was like, I remember him being like kind of quiet, and he was just like, oh, and by the way, I remember being like, you see that, right? I look at him, I'm like, you see that, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what is that? What is it? And he was just like, yeah, we're gonna go. We're just gonna go. You know, he's very calm. So maybe it's like military training. I'm sure that's what it is. But he was just very assertive and yet very calm because I was freaking out. I was at that point, because I'm scanning for fins. I'm not scanning for freaking an alien. And so I'm just like, my brain is like falling apart in this moment because I'm not, one, obviously expecting to see that, but then I see it and my brain is trying to find some, like, you know, it's indexing. Is this a type of thing in the ocean that I just have never known about? No. I know that what we saw was not right. And he was just very calm. He's like, hey, yeah, let's just start paddling. So he's giving me instructions, right? At that point, he's trying to keep me calm. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna need you to paddle. So I'm like, yep, And so we start going in. And then I think I ended up telling you guys this part where I think like a couple years later, was it 3 years later? The story gets brought back up again on that trip. Because ever since then, your girl doesn't go but ankle deep. No, thank you. No, thank you. Even knee deep is a risk for me personally. The oceans for the sharks and the aliens, they can have it. And I remember the story comes back up and my stepdad reveals that he's like, yeah, whatever we saw was not good. I knew we needed to get out of there immediately. And when you have a man, let alone a military man, say that, you really go back into being like, oh my God, we were in some deep waters, no pun intended. Like, so I remember when he said this, I was so shocked. I remember being in Florida and I just like looked at him like, because when that had happened in 2015, 2016, whatever year that was, your brain goes and does that thing where it's like, as time moves on, your brain starts to go, no, you didn't see what you saw. It was something else. And the memory fades a little, you know, you put distance between that moment and today, and your brain starts to tell you like, no. But it really, for the most part, that didn't happen. that much for me. I really held on and knew, like with my whole gut and being, that what I saw was not okay. And I would love, like, please, I would love an explanation. I would love to be wrong, as a matter of fact. I prefer to be wrong. Was it trash? Was it a massive, weird looking turtle? I don't know. Are turtles the only things that will move like that? I don't know. I just know that what I did see was not that. And then for my stepdad, a couple years later, to reveal that he knew that whatever we saw was not okay and that he needed to get us out of there immediately. All I needed to hear. And so again, fast forward to now, I'm starting to see, like, did the government really, like, I don't even know. Should I just do a Google search of this? Like, because I'm not going to just take TikTok's word for it by any stretch of the means. But that's the consensus I've seen. Did the government confirm aliens are real in the ocean? Despite the testimony, no hard evidence has emerged concerning UAPs, extraterrestrial, or a government cover-up. What? I didn't ask you that. But, so then I guess to kind of like end this, do I think aliens exist? Here's the thing for me. I am a believer of God and his word. So the two, I feel like you can't believe that and believe in aliens, because there's no mention of him creating other life sources and other planets. And that's not to say that he hasn't, it just wasn't mentioned, right, in the Bible. Was it? I don't know. And so it just feels like, I don't feel like I can believe in both and at the same time. And so I would say I lean more towards, obviously I believe in God and that will never change. I do tend to find myself not believing that there's other planets and other beings. I believe God made earth in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, and it's firmament and as so above as below, like all of those things, right? That's my personal belief. So then how do you describe what I saw? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Other than we've only explored a very small percentage of the ocean kind of theory. I have no idea where to honestly land on a lot of things lately. I have to say, I really don't know which way to swing with a lot of those things. I know that my faith in God's unwavering, but I don't know, about, are there missing pieces to the puzzle? Like, anyways, that's my story. And I would love to be wrong. I would love to just be like, to laugh. For somebody to be like, oh, did you see this? And show me a picture. Oh yeah, oh, it's just a weird octopus. And start laughing, like, how silly was all of this? I would love for that to actually be the case. I just don't know. It was obviously enough and weird enough and something that he and I both had never seen before to get us the hell out of there. It was enough for that. I mean, he threw out his net for the bait fish about 5-6 times. That was it. That was as long as we were out there. So I have found myself telling this story now in the current day, knowing all these things are happening. Like, what happened in Miami Mall? Like, what is kind of going on? Like, And then I have my own account, and it's kind of like, you know, I don't know. It just really pauses you and it makes you think. And telling the story now does feel a little scarier, because it's like, if XYZ ends up kind of being real, like, I was close to it. I was 15, 20 yards away from something like this. And wow, it spared us or whatever, right? Like, it didn't do anything to us. And it just watched us. That's what it did. And it sunk itself back in when we were leaving. So I don't know. Anyways, that's my personal story of seeing something in the ocean that was just bizarre. But anyways, that's probably going to be today's vlog, because I just talked for like 45 minutes to an hour. If I can remember the TikTok, if that story intrigued you of the girl in the house, I will do my best to find it on TikTok and link her like TikTok account below, and then you're welcome to go watch it on your own and watch her story and get all the actual facts of her story from her rather than from me, because I'm only like remembering pieces and I don't know if I'm like saying all the pieces correctly. So yeah, I realize how lucky I am. I think of, actually now if I think about it, I think of how many times my life truly has been spared. And I've told you guys the almost being abducted several times, 3 different times. Walking my niece in a Walmart parking lot, and when I was out jogging in my neighborhood. Actually, that happened in 2015, 2016. So I feel like I'm like, wow, like I just escaped, you know? Anyways, it is, yeah. Anyways, I'll tell you this, you will never catch me on a kayak. You won't catch me on a floaty, on a ship. No, not in an ocean, not in an ocean. I don't even get into lake water if I don't have to, because I don't even trust that. Is he gonna surface from there? And he's like, hey, but that's just me. And hopefully we are going to be resuming our family vacations again next year, but just know I will be ankle deep in that water, and that's as far as I will go, and I will be most definitely comfortable with that. But anyways, that's my story time. I don't even want to say I hope y'all enjoyed it, but that's that. So anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye.